boshlasak bo'ladi-da. Xo'p bo'ladi. Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli xonimlar va janoblar.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues and
Uzbekistan COVID-19 response, developed jointly with the Minister of Justice, Republic of Uzbekistan, and the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and the International Development Law Organization. It's a great privilege and honor for me to be here and moderate in this event. And I would like to extend my deepest gratitude today for our participants. And with your permission, I move to Uzbek language, and we'll have simultaneously translation here.
Dear colleagues, we are organizing an event which is being held jointly with the establishing commercial mediation in Uzbekistan. So this is an official opening of this ceremony. As you know, several years ago, law on mediation was adopted in Uzbekistan, and prior to that, commercial arbitrage was also was important thing at the moment, and as part of the priorities of priority areas is that resolving disputes in an efficient way. Of course, without doing this, it's difficult to achieve investment attractiveness of the country. It will be difficult. And as for ways of settling disputes, the particularity of the mediation is that at present, when, let's say, these institutions, the presence of these institutions and to what extent they are acting is interesting. Of course, questions will be asked about the outcomes of what has been done, so they should be reflected in the figures. And of course, a lot of things have been done in this regard. The legal framework was developed and then adopted, and then relevant changes were made to the relevant laws, let's say civil procedural code, and then we want to know to give more support to this mediation institute. And today's event is to further promote this institution in our country, and to show our country as a country which is open to this kind of figures. And then this is one of the aims of this event. Therefore, I would like to give the floor to the Deputy Justice Minister, Uzbek. Please, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear participants of the meeting, dear our guests, dear Alkins Dakinis and our team, and some others are joining first of all, I would like to welcome you in the building of our ministry during the pandemic, that we are all safe and healthy. Of course, it's a kind of a big thing, but still we should continue our work because our aim is we have big goals, and Uzbekistan is also conducting a lot of reforms, including today, for example, today's issue is a kind of new project. Here we can consult and discuss, because if we talk about the mediation, the moment in Uzbekistan, we are trying to, we have 3 codes and 5 laws and 5 presidential decrees and resolutions and 2 resolutions of the Cabinet of Ministers, and we also have our internal documents, but this is it's good that it's one thing to adopt these documents, but but then implement them in practice and use them. But we have a lot of shortcomings in this regard. So taking this into account, this new project with our European partners, we will, implement this thing, and we have a lot of, issues to tackle in these because analysis show that we have many laws, but in some areas have not been reflected in these laws. So we have to discuss this. You all know that our regulatory documents, we have the law on the regulatory documents, and here there also is when, of course, when adopting these kind of documents, we should learn the foreign experience, and of course taking into account our local mentality, and of course taking into account Uzbekistan's interests, but we should also take into account the experience of foreign countries. This is one of the main issues. I think that our project, the Ministry of Justice, or let's say Rabiev, or other relevant bodies. So we should come together, and the main the purpose is to develop and get going this Institute of Mediation. Of course, it should be a kind of the alternative institution, and we have a lot of things to do in this regard, in this area. I think that once we start this project and our task, the task that, for example, we will have a roadmap. I think we will discuss this together. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Muzar Marfandaevich, for your for this detailed explanation of and what we need to do. You paid attention to the importance of the foreign experience. In this regard, we have partners from the EBRD, the project manager, Alkins. I would like to give the floor to him. Then we'll continue our roundtable.
So I will continue in English. I hope you can still understand me. I would like to thank you for being here today, and at this very important occasion of the launch of a project that we are very proud of. We sponsor, and the project is, as the minister mentioned, our moderator mentioned, to establish the establishment of commercial mediation in Uzbekistan, which started as a response for COVID-19, but I think it has much wider potential and much wider scope than being just a reaction. Maybe it was a reaction from the crisis, from the pandemic, but it has a much wider role to play in the business environment in the country. So the aim of this project is to build international capacity to regulate, promote, and provide mediation, as well as assist in establishing the complex of professional business mediators, the body of mediators, specifically during the post-COVID pandemic years, as an alternative to courts. Now I'm getting out, I have a speech, I'm getting out of the speech to say that that would be a major reform if it is implemented successfully. It will definitely accelerate let's say in case of differences, it will accelerate the decision-making process, and it will put the ground for cooperations and financial investments and other commercially driven dealings to happen much faster. And I know that there is a lot of aggressive, ambitious deadlines from the top of the country, the government, and that will be a tool to help achieve these goals. Going back to the text. So on behalf of the EBRD, I would very much like to thank the Ministry of Justice, the Lawyers Training Center under the Ministry, and the Tashkent Mediation Centre for their continuous cooperation in promoting mediation and the willingness to contribute and support the project on legal reform and build institutional capacity for that in Uzbekistan. Also, a great thank you to the speakers and the participants of today's event, and warm greetings to our long-standing partner, the International Development Law Organization that will be delivering the project. Continuing, as head of the EBRD office in Uzbekistan, I cannot overestimate the importance of stability in investments, stable environment in investments. As you know, EBRD is a major investor in the region and in Uzbekistan, and we are making our best efforts to help business grow and flourish. And we believe that through financial investments, business services, and with this, we are making an environment conducive and better for our clients, for the country, for economic growth. Just to give you a few numbers about us, since the beginning of our operations in Uzbekistan became a member of the bank, we have invested 2.7 billion euro in over 100 projects. And only in the last 4 years, the part that we've done, the investments over the last 4 years, when the environment was more conducive, the country has started becoming more open and reforming, we have invested over 2 billion in 60 projects in the last 4 years alone. In addition, EBRD has been supporting implementation of legal reforms with the view to improve investment climate in the bank's country of operation by helping the states create an investor-friendly, transparent, and predictable legal environment. This is a priority of the EBRD Legal Transition Program, and I see my colleague Veronica on the screen. Hello, she's principal counsel in this department of the bank. And we have been focusing with legal transition team on improving legislation for dispute resolution, public procurement, public-private partnership, energy efficiency, and some other areas. Again, getting out of my speech, very recently we have started working with the Ministry of Finance on, it's actually also part of the notes here, on public procurement. So we're doing electronic procurement for government needs, which is something that we strongly believe will help achieve transparency, more efficiency, and also align the EBRD with the leadership vision to tackle corruption, which we understand is a direction that all here together we want to achieve. Now, we have also helped with our legal work to increase the governance of state-owned enterprises. And we have advised on the process of privatization, having assisted the State Asset Management Agency for this, including insolvency reforms and supporting with the regulatory framework to introduce factoring, which is a financial product, as well as in many other areas in providing technical cooperation. One of such areas is to promote effective dispute resolutions mechanisms, which are essential for a thriving economy and investment. And we offer means to protect economic interests and foster trust in commercial relations. We aim at greater and more effective use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms such as mediation, because we believe it can bring a range of potential benefits to all the participants by reducing judicial backlogs. That's delays. We improve the efficiency of the administration of justice and make national courts more effective and cost efficient through the reduction of funds earmarked for litigations as well. So the importance of mediation raises with the fact that justice systems around the world and in Uzbekistan were put under considerable pressure due to the pandemic included disruptions. A lot of complaints gave rise. And the functioning of the court system was stretched, and this has hit business, especially small, medium enterprises, particularly hard. So with additional challenges posed by the COVID pandemic, the present project has been designed to provide technical support in advancing commercial mediation in Uzbekistan, with a focus on establishing and promoting online mediation. So this is a digital as well platform that we want to put in place. We strongly believe that mediation can effectively complement the courts by unburdening them from cases that could be resolved by the parties themselves. Therefore, the bank is very happy to support the ambitions of the government of Uzbekistan to popularize commercial mediation among businesses and judges. Bring people, make it a well-functioning body. I hope that our work will contribute to building trust in the justice system and will help create increased investor confidence in Uzbekistan, which is crucial for economic development. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Rahmat kattakon, janob Dickinson. Hozir bildirib o'tgan fikrlaringizni so'nggi qismida e'tibor qaratishni xohlardim. Haqiqatan ham pandemiya sharoitida ko'plab mamlakatlarning ko'plab sohalarida
Indeed, in the pandemic condition, in many countries, new spheres are being revised.
Salbiy oqibatlari bilan birgalikda buni ijobiy oqibatlari ba'zi bir mamlakatlarda yangi yo'nalishlarda tezroq marraga erishish imkoniyatini ham yaratib beradi. Siz juda ham to'g'ri ta'kidlab o'tdingiz. Hozir
there are also some positive aspects. Some issues get resolved, and you have very rightly noted that in our country there's a great potential for developing mediation, and the matters of the need for expanding it is indeed a topical issue in the investment attractiveness and to ensure stability not only in the capital but also in the regions to make it in equal conditions, and you have rightly stated that. And I would say that it's not just funds, it's the expert capacity, knowledge is very important. And I would like to thank you very much. And now I would like to give the next floor to the International Development Law Organization, the director, Mr. Roland Friedrich. He is joining us online. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nida. I hope I'm on the right channel. Please let me know if that's not the case.
Yes, we're hearing you, well, seeing you. Thank you so much.
Your Excellency, Deputy Minister Ikramov, Mr. Trakinos, distinguished participants, it is a great pleasure indeed for me to welcome you all to this launch event on behalf of the International Development Law Organization, IDLO, the only global intergovernmental organization exclusively devoted to promoting the rule of law to advance peace and sustainable development. IDLO works to enable governments and empower people to reform laws, strengthen institutions, to promote peace, justice, sustainable development, and economic opportunity. IDLO has been working in supporting governments and institutions in Central Asia for more than 20 years, together with our international partners, and we're very grateful and proud of our activities in the region. And as such, we very much value our evolving collaboration with the Ministry of Justice and the government of Uzbekistan, which has made legal reform a cornerstone of its national development policy under the successive presidencies of Mr. Shavkat Mirziyoyev And indeed, President Mirziyoyev, in his recent speech, called human rights and ensuring the rule of law the main priorities for Uzbekistan. We welcome these reforms and these positive changes being achieved thanks to them. We're delighted to have the opportunity to contribute to the development of this important vision for Uzbekistan. A priority under the legal reform agenda has been the development of the institution of commercial mediation, key for creating efficient avenues for dispute resolution, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, indeed a boon for economic investment and an important channel for the settlement of disputes, both arising out of and requiring resolution during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, which remains an ongoing challenge of global proportions. Distinguished participants, in that regard, I would also like to highlight IDLO's long-standing collaboration with EBRD in this area. And as my colleague Veronica Bradautanu from EBRD's legal transition team will outline in her presentation, EBRD and IDLO over a number of years have been implementing and continue to do so joint projects aimed at advancing the institution of mediation and more broadly alternative dispute resolution across Eastern Europe and Central Asia, but also in the Middle East and North Africa. I'm therefore delighted that the Establishing Commercial Mediation in Uzbekistan COVID-19 Response Project is indeed the first project we are implementing in Uzbekistan, and I'm very pleased that we're doing so together with our long-standing partner EBRD. I'm sure it will not be the last. On 16 February 2021, IDLO Director General Ms. Jen Bigel and the Minister of Justice of the Republic of Uzbekistan, His Excellency Mr. Ruslanbek Davletov, signed a memorandum of understanding which outlines a vision for future cooperation, an important milestone in strengthening our mutual priorities to advance the rule of law. We very much look forward to our continued collaboration as part of this project and beyond. The principal objective of the Establishing Commercial Mediation in Uzbekistan COVID-19 Response Project is to support the Ministry of Justice, the Lawyers Training Center, and the Mediation Centre in Uzbekistan in building their institutional capacity to regulate, to promote, and to provide mediation, as well as assist in establishing the cadre of professional business mediators, specifically during and post the ongoing pandemic, and that with the overarching goal of making the use of mediation, including online mediation, a business norm in Uzbekistan. As such, the project seeks to support Uzbekistan COVID-19 recovery and provide a sustained foundation for commercial mediation, including its online component in the longer term. Institutionalizing commercial mediation requires innovative, collaborative solutions that incorporate a mix of the necessary regulatory framework based on best practices from the region internationally, well-governed institutions, targeted awareness raising, and most importantly, training programs to build up professional local cadres of mediators. This project covers all these areas, and I'm sure that the joint efforts of the Ministry of Justice of Uzbekistan, other key Uzbek stakeholders, the EBRD and IDLO, as well as the team of national and international experts that will support the project, will together deliver an important contribution to making commercial mediation a standard dispute resolution practice in Uzbekistan. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, in September 2021, Uzbekistan, the biggest nation in Central Asia, celebrated the 30th anniversary of its independence. I would like to use this opportunity to congratulate the Republic of Uzbekistan on this important milestone and to once again salute the government of Uzbekistan on its efforts to advance and promote the rule of law. Thank you very much indeed.
Janob Friedrich, bizni mamlakatimiz haqida bildirgan fikrlaringiz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Friedrich, for the thoughts and your opinion you have shared about our country and about the key points that you have identified about this program. With your permission, we would like to move on now to the key speakers of our event, and it is my pleasure to give the next floor to Anna Koppel, the regional expert. Is she joining us online? shortly, we have Veronica Brado-Tano, EBRD project operation leader. Veronica, we can listen to you and we can see you. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introductions, and good day to all the participants and colleagues online. It's a great pleasure to greet you and to see you. Indeed, I'm Veronica Brado-Tano, and thank you very much for the introductions from our partners at IDLO, and a kind introduction by my colleagues at the head office at EBRD, Alkis Frianos Trakinos. I would first like to thank our partners, Ministry of Justice, for all the support in organizing this event, and also during the preliminary stages of the project. This project was designed together with you to address the issues and the needs of the Ministry of Justice and of the government of Uzbekistan in their ambition to promote the rule of law. I would also like to thank my colleagues who also were participating at the initial stages of the project from the Lawyers Training Center under the Ministry and the Tashkent Mediation Centre. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you during the project. I would, just to provide us with some visual, I would share my screen so that please confirm that you can see.
Yes, we're seeing you.
Excellent. I will just do the slideshow. There you go. So my colleague Alkis has kindly presented our team, but so I will be very brief about the EBRD legal transition program, which is part of the legal department at EBRD, and we have been acting for about almost 20 years now, doing technical assistance projects in many countries, and there are 15 lawyers, and our goal is to improve investment climate, and our project is part of this objective. And here we're trying to show what is the virtuous cycle of legal reform. And in our technical assistance projects, we do assessment work, which feeds into our project work. And our current project is part of this technical cooperation element. And during this project work, we also gather knowledge, which we can share with all the participants, and also doing some standard settings, which we could use in our future work and current work. And as mentioned by Alkis, we have a number of focus areas, including corporate governance, dispute resolution, infrastructure, financial law, public procurement, and resource efficiency. And already my colleagues are working with you on the ground on a number of these areas. In the dispute resolution area, which is the project is part of this area of activity, we are working with courts. We are working with enforcement of court decisions, alternative dispute resolution, and the focus is on mediation. And we also try to move towards online dispute resolution, which is obviously has been highlighted, and its importance has been brought forward by the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we also realized that we need to provide more support to SMEs. And in Uzbekistan, we also did a project on legal advice to SMEs via webinars and a Q&A paper, just to allow them access to knowledge about legal issues. And we've been very kindly supported by the Ministry of Justice and law firms on the ground, as well as SME associations. Sorry, wrong. So just to complement what Mr. Friedrich was saying about our long-standing partnership with IDLO and our projects on mediation, through which we gathered a lot of expertise and which we are ready and happy to share with our colleagues in Uzbekistan. We have done a number of projects together in a number of countries, including Jordan, Kyrgyz Republic, Moldova, Montenegro, Serbia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. So these are all the projects that are ongoing and which will feed into one another. In some projects we are more advanced, in others we are just starting, as in Uzbekistan. You can notice that we have 3 projects in the region, in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyz Republic, and we hope that we will be able to share some expertise and some experience through all these countries. And I wanted to just highlight a few projects which will contribute in a way to the knowledge and sharing of experience in the project in Uzbekistan as well. So for example, in Jordan, we have produced a brief guide on mediation, on commercial mediation for policymakers, which provides us with a lot of useful information, which we could use in other countries as well. We did a functional analysis, which we also plan to do in Uzbekistan, analyzing what are the current trends and practice and what the law says on mediation and how we could improve it. And we also did some recommendations for the legislation and put in place a mediation action plan. So all of this will be very helpful to us in our project in Uzbekistan. We also, through our project in Serbia, we looked at the frameworks and legal provisions in a number of countries where mediation has been available for some time, including Austria, Greece, Italy, Singapore, the Netherlands, and Turkey. And we are building on all this knowledge and experience too. And in Moldova, we have a long-standing project which included a variety of activities, including extensive training for mediators, and for the judiciary, because it's important for the judiciary to support mediation. We also worked with the regulatory body, which is the Mediation Council under the Ministry of Justice, and we created a plan for them. We created the whole framework of regulations for the mediation profession, because it's quite important to build trust in the profession, and this is how you can achieve this. And I just wanted to share with you a few key lessons for the policy and lawmakers, which we thought that are of most importance in order for the mediation to actually work on the ground. So the first in our countries of operations is to put in place a good legal and regulatory framework, and Uzbekistan is already on this path by adopting the law on mediation. Now perhaps we need a number of regulations in order to start the implementation of the law. It's also important to have a regulatory body on a government level, which would monitor and set standards for the profession, because this helps building trust in the profession. And then the businesses and the public will be more willing to access mediation. It's important to train the mediators, and this is what we will also do during our project. And Uzbekistan has a number of centers, and most importantly, the Lawyers Training Center under the ministry, which already provides training for mediators, so we'll be helping them. which is very important. We also realized that in order for mediation to work in most countries, you need to put in place some incentives. And so far, the most potent incentives proved to be a mandatory first session of mediation, and its so-called Italian model. And hopefully we will have an opportunity to discuss this with you in more details. Another very good incentive is that the enforcement of settlement agreements is embedded in the law, similar to, for example, arbitral awards, where the court confirms the settlement agreements or the notary puts a signature of enforcement on the settlement agreement, and that gives certainty to the parties that at the end of the mediation they will have a result which they can then enforce if the parties don't do it voluntarily. It's also important to have judiciary support. So the courts not necessarily have to mediate, but if they advise parties to use mediation, if they also then inquire with the parties if they try to use mediation or not, that all helps to promote mediation and to incentivize parties to use it. And obviously, it's very important to raise awareness and to promote use of mediation among the public, among the businesses, and the legal professions. I would like to also, in a way, give a little bit of background to the to our project. We have met with the Ministry of Justice a number of times and discussed how we could put this project in place, on what activities we could do. And Uzbekistan has taken a lot of steps to be able to embrace this new tool by adopting the new law, by being keen on improving the investment climate, by developing the profession of mediators. We also realized that during the pandemic, the alternative mechanisms became much more prominent and could be used due to the fact that they're so flexible. They could be used during such harsh times, and also could be easily moved online. And all of this culminated also in the Singapore Convention on Mediation, which is really a great tool to promote mediation. And we hope we will have an opportunity to discuss with the Ministry of Justice and Uzbekistan's government whether they would consider joining the convention and how this could be implemented on the ground. I will leave to my colleague from IDLO, Lubomir Petruleskov, to speak in more details about the project, but mainly the project objective is to promote mediation and to make it a business norm in Uzbekistan. We have a number of beneficiaries of this project, and we think that direct beneficiaries would be the Ministry of Justice, the Lawyers Training Center, the Mediation Center, all the mediators in Uzbekistan, and obviously the business community who will be using this this tool, but also who will be subjected to public awareness and the legal community. And we believe that the project will also indirectly benefit the business community at large, the whole justice sector by unburdening it, and overall the economy and investment climate. And I will stop here and let Lubomir to take over and tell us about the project activities that are planned in more details. Thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to cooperating with you on this project. Lubomir, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you. Good day to all participants, and it is my pleasure to be today with all of you And as Veronica already announced, I will talk a little bit more about the deliverables and activities that we aim to do under this project. So for that reason, I will also share my screen. We also have prepared a presentation on that, so it will be easier for you to follow. Just a moment. Can you see my screen? Yeah. Our usual practice, and you have opportunity here to hear about our cooperation between EBRD and IDLO and work on commercial mediation, that we are actually tackling several different layers when we talk about commercial mediation. So we are tackling legislative frameworks, institutional frameworks, capacity building activities directed towards mediators itself, but also judges and lawyers, and awareness raising activities that are quite relevant when we talk about promotion of the alternative dispute resolution as an effective way to resolve disputes. So this specific project is divided in 6 activities, and we'll start from the first one, which will be focusing on review of existing legal frameworks and practice of commercial mediation in Uzbekistan against best international practices, and we will come with some recommendations for its development. For that reason, we plan to organize focus group discussions and individual structured interviews with many different actors in the field, and from the list that Veronica previously shared on the screen. Organizations on the roundtables and other event. I think this launch event is just first step in this direction. We will aim to prepare review and recommendations for the improvements in this regard. Legislative drafting and proposals to improve legislation that is going to be done in close cooperation with the Ministry of Justice, and trying to draft a long-term strategy for development of commercial mediation in Uzbekistan. Second activity is going to be the strengthening capacity of mediation institution in Uzbekistan. As I mentioned, this institutional framework is going to be one of our focuses during the implementation, which will include drafting and improving checklists and internal regulations for different institutions, conducting needs assessment for the website, and developing a brief concept for the needed and appropriate web resource on development of mediation-specific web page at the Ministry of Justice website, and drafting mediation dispute resolution clauses with a number of options, which will be then quite useful for the businesses who are entering into, let's say, contractual relationships to include commercial mediation clauses to their usual business practice. Activity 3 will aim to build the capacity of mediators itself. And while doing that, we will first focus ourselves to train the group of selected trainers who will on how to train additional, let's say, candidates for future mediators, to train them to become mediators. So under this training of trainer methodology, it will be the developed outline of the training, developed training modules, training participants will be selected. All these materials, of course, and trainings will be conducted in local language. And the training itself is going to be conducted as well. The training materials will be available for the online and in practice, which will allow us to gain additional level of sustainability, and which will allow for the future trainers to have an important source of knowledge in this regard. Activity 4, it's a kind of logical step after the TOT, training for trainers, is organizing training for mediators on commercial mediation, which will also be focused quite a lot on online dispute resolution. So we are a project team together with experts that will develop training modules for the training, and then we also plan to develop and adopt our existing guidance for mediators how to conduct online mediation sessions. We plan to organize 4 thematic trainings for the 4 different groups of mediators. We also have idea, and based on our previous experience in different countries from the wider region, to develop e-learning course on mediation and organize a mini presentation of the e-learning course. Activity 5 will be focused on awareness raising and public awareness on commercial mediation. So in this regard, we will focus ourselves in 2 different directions. One is going to be towards the general public, and another one is going to be awareness raising towards the mediators. So we plan to, for example, develop public awareness campaign plan, publish communication materials to actually implement campaign, public awareness campaign, and to organize different workshops and publish publications and different video materials, which will then serve to promote mediation to the wider public. We also mentioned several times in this during this event that the judiciary have quite significant role in a promotion and efficient use of mediation in different countries. So activity 6 will be focusing on piloting commercial mediation with courts or outside the courts. So we will start from developing the methodology for piloting mediation. Idea is to select 25 disputes that can be then piloted and analyzed in different courts. And then after disseminating the experience gains, so to stimulate future reforms. I think it's quite relevant for us to understand what during that period, what worked well and how things that doesn't work well in that during that pilot phase can be then addressed. So to the benefit of the future efficiency in this regard. Promoting mediation among the courts consists of several activities. Organizing meeting between mediators and judges, actually promoting the communication with those 2 professions, trying to organize mediation corners at local courts, as a similar practice worked well in different countries where we already work together, placement of informational stands about mediation in the courts, etc. At the end of this project, we also plan to organize a study tour to the leading mediation center, and that is going to be decided jointly with our national partners. And we've made here like several different options, like Turkey, Italy, and Montenegro. Those are the countries that have quite a lot of success in terms of promoting mediation, and especially Turkey and Montenegro in recent years, since they quite adopted the Italian model that I already mentioned. The project itself is going to last 22 months, and we are really very much looking forward to start this initiative and to all of us jointly put mediation to the place where it belongs, let's say. Thank you so much, and I give the word to the moderator.
Пожалуйста. Okay.
We would like to thank for their support and for their detailed information. We would like to thank them. And during this roundtable, our participants, we have experts who are acting in the mediation sphere. We hope that in our next working groups, we will discuss one more what we will do in the future. I also have some suggestions. I would like to particularly thank to our previous speakers. Mr. Akins, you want to say something?
Yeah, hello. Yes, I have a question. As I was attending the presentation, I understand that the mediators will be trained legal professionals, like lawyers with a degree from university and some years of experience.
Any profession and any educational degree.
All right.
Yes.
So,
for the professional mediator.
Okay, the question is, those that will go through the training that will be provided by our assistants, will they have, will they go through an exam? Will they have, let's say, a professional qualification as a result of this?
Yes.
That's the question.
For today, for now, two organizations organizing mediation courses, professional mediation courses. First is the MOJ Minister, Professional Center under the Minister of Justice, and our center under the Tashkent State University of Law. We had the 48 hours program courses, special courses. Any kind of like volunteer wants to come to our courses, they can participate here. And after the 2 weeks courses, they get the final exam. And after the final exam, they will get the certificate, official certificate. After taking the official certificate, they go to the Minister of Justice office on the region and they put on the list. And then they can continue work as a mediator. Rahmat. Marhamat, bizning tinglovchilarimiz.
So our participants, today's our round table is a kind of in a free format. We will add, if you have anything to add to what has been said, please express yourself.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me for such event, and Ministry of Justice and the EBRD. I have some comment on what have Miss Veronica has just showed us in the slides. And it read that regulatory body to monitor. I have been the proponent of a liberal approach to mediation in Uzbekistan, taking us the too over-regulated framework for mediation. It will not come up with very good results, because the nature of mediation is based on the flexibility of the mediation procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to answer?
Yes, please, if you have any comments. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, it is a matter of debate whether to have a regulatory body and in what format it should be. And also the mandatory nature of first session, for example, for mediation in cases. So I'll reply in two steps. About the regulatory body, it doesn't have to be necessarily under the Ministry of Justice or the government agency. It could be a self-regulatory organization if it works in a country. The purpose for this regulatory body is to instill trust in the profession of mediation. So it's the regulatory body for the profession of mediators, so that the public believes that the mediators are delivering quality services and that there is an outlet to either complain or to ensure this examination of the mediators and to ensure quality of their services. So that in a way is the key purpose of the regulatory body, and also to look at the policies and in a way promote the profession and to set up standards, but also perhaps help with regulations or laws or amendments which would help promote mediation. So basically to have a key policy body which promotes the profession and also the instrument itself. And then I wanted also to just a brief comment on this fact that mediation is a voluntary process. And it's true, it is a voluntary process because parties have to agree on the resolution, and parties have to be free to either use or not the mediation instrument. At the same time, through our experience and work in different countries on this project, we realized that, and I would be supported by some of the experts, not necessarily all, that if you keep it completely voluntary without any nudging and at least soft mandatory element, it's going to be very difficult to promote. People don't take up instruments which are completely voluntary, even if they're good for them. So although in various surveys the answer is yes, we like mediation, the businesses would say yes, we like mediation and we would like to use it. When it comes to practice, it's typically very low numbers of mediation that are conducted. So if we look at countries, I told you that for Serbia we did this comparative analysis, and we looked at the Netherlands, at Austria, what other countries where this is a voluntary mechanism, and the number of mediations is quite low. So some of the countries in the push to try and promote this instrument, they adopted this Italian model, which is a compromise between mandatory and voluntary, because all that it requires is that the parties go at least through one session of mediation, and then they decide whether they want to use it or not, and they're free to decide. But at least they have this chance to be told and explained about mediation by a professional mediator. And it's not mandatory for all cases, it's just for some categories of cases, and mostly business and commercial cases. So that's a conclusion from all the experience. And currently Turkey, Greece, and Azerbaijan, I think, adopted this model of having at least first mandatory session of mediation for some categories of cases, and it seems to work for them. So it's a decision for the country which way to go. And through this project, we are not planning to necessarily impose any solution for Uzbekistan. It's your decision. It will be your decision which policy you want to adopt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rahmat kattakon bildirilgan fikrlar uchun. Demak, keyingi ikkita speakerimizga so'z berishimiz kerak. Reglament doirasida harakat qilishimiz uchun.
Thank you for the thoughts expressed. So I would like to give the floor to the next two speakers so that we move within our time list. It is my pleasure to give the floor to Diarbek Kimsanov. He will talk about the key research factors on legal improvement on commercial ADR and mediation. Greetings, dear teachers, dear colleagues. I would like to express our gratitude to today's participants. And we expect very high results of today's program that we are embarking on today. And on behalf of our team, we're participating here, and that's why the thoughts we're about to express as a mediator community. So the unexpected results of today's program are, I would even say that we have high hopes with this program. And the first thing I would like to emphasize, previously, we heard from the representatives of the EBRD about and when we had negotiations about the project contents, as one of the suggestion was to start with smaller things, start from the commercial mediation, and but still we stick to the opinion that the working group, the international experts work group, should not study mediation, should not implement mediation, and should not study the prospects in mediation in Uzbeks. But I would request that the commercial mediation is implemented because as even though the legislation specifies a number of ways of introducing mediation, still the legal environment is completely different in our countries. That's why we should be moving along the lines of putting a greater emphasis on developing commercial mediation. So our viewpoint is that in resolving the commercial conflicts, international law goes by Washington Convention and New York Convention, that is international arbitration, international investment and commercial disputes resolution, and the mandatory compliance of the countries. Thirdly, there is a Hague Convention, the two conventions of Hague, that is the foreign courts decisions on the commercial conflicts, that their decisions shall be mandatory. Recently, there was a discussion about adopting the Singapore, ratifying the Singapore Convention. That is, we're at the stage of learning the best practices from the international mediation. So the system we have, what does it include? The investment law of Uzbekistan, and it does have a reservation about the use of mediation. Then we have economic procedural code. We have the law about the international arbitration, and we also have the international mediation, a law of Uzbekistan on international mediation. So the main idea I want to convey is that the commercial mediation in Uzbekistan, the main focus of improving shall be put on specifically these aspects. So previously, first of all, we should make sure that the mediation should take the load not off the court, but from international arbitration processes. And even if we take the load, some load off of the courts, there should be some alternative. And there should be some degree of the type of conflict to be resolved in the court and to be resolved in the mediation. So if I believe that that would be a better placing of the emphasis in developing the mediation. And even though we have a law on mediation, we don't have the international mediation in place. And jointly with the other thing is that the international experts of the Board of Mediation are limited in Uzbek legislation because they are foreign courts. Or if we say that or for example, foreign judges cannot be involved in resolving arbitration, or foreign law cannot be applied, and that's why those gaps are there. So we could use mediation to fill those gaps. So this is the first area of expectation from the program. That is, we have to make sure that we have to do the implementation of the institutional level, that in the close to mid-range, there should be a complex program developed for implementing mediation. The second thing is of a larger scale. It would be more expedient for us to study the mediation institutions. We have various mediation agreements, but they are not full developed legally. And the mediative agreements, even if we take the mediative reservation as a component, it we may have cases where it is rendered invalid. So there is that threat. So there was a reason why Mr. Sherzod talked about preliminary mediation. So there are two laws which have conflicting definition of the preliminary mediation. One of the laws says that the preliminary mediation is not mandatory, and the parties can elect to opt out of the mediation. However, in the other law, towards the investors that do not have the investment agreement, but there is a gap in our legislation. And if we look at our neighbors' legislation, they went all the way to in this logical exception. And mediation is left there as an alternative prior to the court. So we should be looking more at that aspect. And we should not. We're not talking about the competition between the court and arbitration, because if I'm able to choose, I may choose from a larger range of courts, and which would limit to the limitation of the political liberty. So once we give a deeper analysis, I believe that we will have a much more comprehensive view of that. Now, talking about online mediation, it is some form of conciliation, and it should not become a form of a remote conference. The digitalization, its confidentiality, its legal scope and coverage should all be well defined. And because otherwise it may end up as a problem. And we talked a lot about the mechanism of mandatory enforcement. It's one of the issues in Uzbekistan. And we talked about international mechanisms. Now, mediation, the mandatory enforcement of the solution should be the key, because without it, this mechanism will be just doomed and futile. Now, as we open our market, business mediation talks about the absence of borders. So from this point of view, participation in the mediation, we have to look at the parties participating in mediation. In the Uzbek legislation, there are no rules defined, and we have to borrow some concepts, and whether the foreign lawyers can participate or not, or something that's new for our legislation. There are commercial organizations of legal consulting organizations. What will be the degree of their participation, and if they participate by their own bylaws, if they are limited to participate in the court, then they then we have to make sure that there is no moot point in addressing the mediation. Sorry, a lot of audio disruption. There is also the protocol of co-mediation. The Tashkent Mediation Centre and other foreign mediator could do a co-mediation. So some giving it a legal, temporary legal status is a temporary solution that we can resort to. Now, we should make sure that there is a proper procedure in place, and at the same time, the legal documents. There is a model law that has been reviewed on mediation, that has been reviewed in Uzbekistan, and discrepancies between the commercial economic law and as a practical practitioner mediator, last week, we were not able to use mediation during the trial process because the procedural law limits that there should be only amicable agreement. And even though we have shown our law on mediation, because the procedural law prescribes something else, we were not able to explain, get our point through. So that's the gap in the law. So the element of international mediation should also be put in the right order. But if we don't give it a legal status, we will not be able to use this. And during our previous meetings, we asked our experts one thing, that it should not be just Uzbek legislations, Uzbekistan legislation, but also the international agreements signed by Uzbekistan, bilateral agreements and legal support agreements. They should also be revised and reviewed. So those two Hague conventions, and also the regionally the most used, and we have the Ministry of Justice here, the Kiev Kishinev Minsk conventions, or Moscow Protocol, as we call it. We use them more often. However, there is nothing about mediation, and even in our legislation, even though it's relatively simplified, the court order ratification is still taken with reservation. So if the court order is not enforceable, that we will just be stuck on the border, within our borders. And subject of mediation is a completely topic of completely separate on its own. And talking about the labor conflicts, I saw some examples from Russian legislation. This may be the idea from borrowed from that, but the reason why Russia had it separately, because the collective labor conflict is envisaged there. However, in our legislation, is not fully covered. So even if it is, only the law that is has been adopted in 1991 is there. And third area is, of course, the status of the mediators, their training, the status of professional mediators, as was mentioned. This is something that we have to think about. And from the question and answer, I would like to share something about the regulatory body. Of course, it should be some kind of hybrid body. And the Ministry of Justice should also take part in it. However, we, as we call it, the freedom of association, it's so it's not right, but the liberty. So if we just put it in the law bluntly, then we will just give those organizations a negotiating status. We have to write the liberty of association. Probably it's premature at this point, because it's not only the freedom of association, but we may just violate the principles of representation, that you should only be member of this. Maybe we should enable establishing alternative resolutions. So our law should be enabling, not restricting. So we need more guarantees from the Ministry of Justice. And our main expectations from them are this. So we would like to thank all the EBRD and the Ministry of Justice and all organizers. And we are happy to share all the knowledge and skills as part of this project. May we all be successful. Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you for emphasizing the painful point.
In order to save time, I would like to give the floor to the next speaker, Sevara Maripova, the Lawyers Training Center at the Ministry of. She will speak about the training mediators in Uzbekistan. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for our organizing for this opportunity to illustrate the Center for Training Lawyers in terms of training mediators. Today, I would like to speak about the organization of this training of mediators. I would like to note that in 2018, as soon as the law on mediation was adopted, Uzbekistan, the first issue was who will train mediators. It's several education establishments train lawyers, but at that time, the Center for Retraining Lawyers was first to initiate this. In order to develop the institution of mediators, we had to develop local staff, local mediators, and then we started preparing this. And at the moment, the whole process of training can be divided into several stages. One of those first stages was in 2018 to develop first our manuals and then developing programs to train mediators. First, we underwent so-called piloting. We started to promote it among notary officers and then lawyers, which will be in the forefront to disseminate this information. During 6 months of 2018, we've developed a draft of program to train. It was a 148-hour program, and we've prepared first methodical complex things to our foreign companies and foreign experts. It was developed in the e-form. Now it's in public domain. It's a kind of basic course of mediation. And then, as soon as the Justice Ministry's order was ordered, we've moved on to the second stage. We started trainers for mediation. The whole professors that of course staff of those centers were also trained. We had to understand what the mediation is, and then from among the volunteers we've chosen trainers, mediators who are still undergoing training. We were very lucky. The issue of promoting mediation was dealt with the Justice Ministry. We've learned foreign experience in Kazakhstan or other countries, and then thanks to since the ministry is developing, so it helped us to organize training for trainers for mediators. Thanks to that, we've seen of the schools of over 12 experts who showed us how to train mediators, what mediation is in their countries. Among those is Louisa Van Stein from USA, Tatiana Solina, Alina Sirina. We are representatives of the Ukraine, Lilia Vlasova, practicing mediator in Belarus, Williamson, certified international mediator in Singapore, Alyon Sirshko, certified international mediator and founder and the head of the Singapore. We also looked at how the process of training of mediation is organized. For example, in the case of Kazakhstan, we've invited Valery Rostogov from Russia, our local Tatiana Shogunova, Ksenia Rushkova. Also, they organized us event which were aimed at developing innovative technologies in the field of teaching. So far we've received enough knowledge in order to organize our courses. The courses are conducted in Russian and Uzbek languages. Thanks to this, we were able not to only train our citizens. When we conducted online mediation, we had students who well, let's say foreigners who just were based in their countries. For example, one of them was a person from Kazakhstan, another person was from Turkmenistan, who while being in Iran, attended our online courses. At the moment, on the 7th of December, we want to exchange experience with the representative from Kazakhstan. They want also to study. We can organize, let's say, organize groups where teaching will be both in Russian and Uzbek, and exchange, let's say, teaching schools. And in any case, any knowledge become obsolete. They tend to become old, outdated. Although we were in Singapore, we ourselves got familiarized with the methodology of teaching, and it made it possible for us to make the program, which was meant for 148, down to 72 hours. If initially it was 148, then later this program was shortened, and thanks to the shortening this program, we could easily move to the online training. We have the traditional form of, and we also on the offline and online form. And here we would like to know that first group we came, they were surprised with their composition. We thought that we would think that they would only the lawyers who have higher education, but in the first group we had not only with the higher education, legal education, but also they were people from the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We had also psychologists. We also had doctors, medics. We also had teachers. So there was people from different educational backgrounds. And we also, with time, let's say people who didn't have high education also showed interest, who had secondary specialized education. They also tried to contact us in order to get our education. Thanks to this work which is being carried out in our center, in order to disseminate, let's say, information about these mediation courses. We trained over 100 people. Most of them are the notary officers. Over 500 people who work in notary offices. The rest are, as I said, it can be lawyers, consultants, attorneys, psychologists, medics, and teachers. By the end of the year, we plan train about 1,000 people. At the same time, we are facing very interesting thing. We are training mediators, but not all mediators become real mediators. We'll talk about this. If we talk about the roster of mediators, we think that there is a kind of that we don't have many mediators, but in fact there is the demand for to be trained as mediators is very high. Every week we train 1 week of mediators. So there was a question about training mediators, how it happens here. First of all, we make focus on the developing skills of mediation. That's communication skills, skills of holding talks, negotiations. When I talked about, so as I said, the knowledge tend to become old, outdated. Most of our trainers of mediators are representatives of legal school. We're legally most of us are lawyers, so we would like we need new knowledges. We need to review different schools in Italy, so that let there be more flowers. We are also let there be many schools of mediation from which we could let's say choose the most suitable ones. At the moment, we have let's say groups comprise 15 people, 6 teachers, trainers who constantly train mediators. At the moment, since we have most of them are notary officers, and then we are preparing training manual, let's say mediation in the notary and lawyers activity. In terms of improving the teaching process is being carried out constantly, and thanks to the cooperation with these today's events organizers, we plan action plan. We will hear from the participants of this. We would like that this cooperation continues, and then thanks to this cooperation, we should be able to further expand the opportunities, capacity of our training. Thanks a lot for your attention. Thanks a lot, Siorapa. Yes, please.
It's my last question for the evening before we go, but I'm interested to understand: is there demand for mediators in the regions, and do you train people in the region of Uzbekistan? Do you think that there will be a good uptake for commercial conflicts there?
Спасибо большое. Это очень хороший вопрос.
Question. From the very first round, when we started training, they were not only people from the Tashkent, but they came from different regions. But at the beginning, we only one representative of certain region. But at the moment, we have people from all regions, and even the Republic of Uzbekistan. They have trained mediators now. We have intensive training, and thanks to that, we don't have only the traditional way of training, not only in the classroom but also online. Let's say in most of we have trained mediators, even not only regions, but even in most of the districts. That's thanks to the online training. For many people, it was difficult to come from their work and Tashkent, and therefore, thanks to the experience of Singapore, where, let's say, the training is a one-day program, 2-day program, we came to a conclusion that we could shorten this program, and then the kind of 6-day program, and using this online mode, we can do this. People can stay in their workplace, can attend this training. Thanks a lot. We are just outside our timetable. With you, we would like to finish the first part of this, and then we'll have a kind of 15 minutes coffee break, and then we'll come back at 15:45.
Xonimlar va janoblar, bugungi tadbirimizni
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on to this second part of our event. Do we have participants online? So I'll give the floor to the Umidaxon Zakirova. She will talk about the issues in terms of like mediation. Many things were spoken about prior to me regarding the reforms too. Since I'm not going to talk about the reforms, today the main thing on the agenda is introducing commercial agenda. I think it's logical. It's in line with the market economy, and it's a kind of pressing issue in this regard. When we learned foreign experience, when you refer to mediation, we learned that first of all, in business, in entrepreneurship, if the sides, if they want to continue cooperation and to keep the warm relations, then of course they have to refer to mediation. In many countries, in many developed countries, it has become a culture that is, let's say, not going to court, so not to sue the partner. So this will also damages their reputation. Also, it also involves the, let's say, finance. So this is here to save money. So when we talk about reforms in terms of mediation, they also try to convey this thing to citizens, and we are trying to explain, we should be able to convey this information to those who might use the service of mediation. In the law, in the law on education, which came into force in 2019 during the pandemic, many professions, of course, impacted many professions, and even now the law on mediation, so it embraces most rules. That is, it has a kind of legal framework for mediators to work. And what we see now is that in order to develop mediation for the mediators, they should work on themselves. Yeah, not only mediation but also other laws, also let's say those relating to labor or other civil things also should be reviewed, and this is what we see so far. And prior to me, so I would like to say that our mediators, we have over 800 mediators, about 350 are in the roster of professional registers. When we viewed this, why you don't want to be in the roster of professional mediators? Many of them said that those who were trained say that they are not ready. Others say that they have no time. Others are unaware of that there is such a roster, that it's possible. And then and our normative documents also explain what the procedure to do this. When we talk about those who want to be professional mediators, we would like that we are also making looking for ways of making this thing automated. That once they graduate these courses, if they say that they are willing to become professional moderators, we can include them, enter them into that roster. We are also looking at these measures, how this can be done. We know that professional mediators, So the information is available. It's on the official website of the Justice Ministry, and it's updated every month. And then mediators. Most of the information as what is given by us to us by mediators. We want to, enrich this information that is taking into account the suggestions. We want to develop mediator platform. We are tapping for experience. Another issue is that so our professional mediators, most of them are lawyers or notary officers or professor teachers. So they make most of them, and the difficulties are those. Mediators who are having problems is that their main job is mediators because they are facing some, let's say, financial issues and issues with working with citizens, those who work at notary offices. So they have for mediators, but they just study and then they have to go just take a step into life. Therefore, so we think it's also important to have some kind of teacher for the mediators. So we have to look at this issue also. Those who go to these mediation courses should have a kind of teachers when they start work. If such issue is raised, then we will also support. This issue. So a kind of working group can work at it. And another issue in terms of developing mediation, of course, the role of courts is very important in many countries. So it's, courts are more interested in developing mediation. That if they, let's say, send these other disputes to mediators, then they can really focus on more serious issues. That's so. In many countries, courts are also courts also benefit. So in this regard. That it was mentioned that in the first instance of mediation can be mediation, and then even state tax also can be returned at the first stage instance of court. Even on this issue, we also looking at the issue of applying the CMF at the highest instance of course, but only only in the Supreme Court mediation cannot be applied. So before reaching Supreme Court, the issue if the sides reconcile. So these rules are enshrined in those regulatory documents. In addition to that, one of those introducing a compulsory or mandatory mediation is good. This way mediators can be employed when it's going to mediative agreement. They can develop their skills, but in order to develop this thing, we have to comprehensively analyze it. When we had to deal with the family issues, we also looked at introducing a mandatory mediation, compulsory mediation. From different points of view, when we researched it, it's not only we should, of course, have a kind of comprehensive approach when we look at this issue. If, let's say, a couple wants to divorce, of course, we have kind of reconciliating commissions at if we introduce compulsory mediation, that the sides probably it may create kind of extra issues for the couple. If on the other hand, in foreign countries, when mediator is approached, of course, mediators provide service, paid service, then the sides might say that why should I pay state tax and also I have to pay mediator? When we studied the foreign experience, if the sides use the services of the compulsory mediation, then the sides, if they reconcile, then they may have some kind of exemptions in terms of paying a state tax, state fee. So we have to here to take into account the interests of all sides. When we talk about the we have to reinforce the legal force of these mediative agreements. When the of course it's also based on the it should not contradict the principles of this mediative agreement. Before doing this, the sides should you know turn to the mediators. In addition to that, mediators themselves should continuously study technologies and improve their knowledge. So they should have a kind of deep knowledge of conflictology, because it's a kind of honored profession that also is quite complicated. This is being able to find and it's very difficult to find a kind of agreement between the two conflicting sides. Therefore, in foreign countries, so the psychology of mediators is also quite well developed. So since mediators who for example, so they had let's say those who were involved in many of these kind of conflict situations, mediators, then they stopped working because they had some psychological problems. Let's say when a mediator is involved in these disputes, and if they cannot let's say succeed in reconciling the side, that doesn't mean that the mediator is not very good professional. When we talk about the professional mediators, they can let's say be involved in prior to court, even during the court. We just issue them so far certificates. Those mediators. We are also looking at this issue, looking into the issue. So giving them kind of ID, so that when they approach a state body, so that they can show their ID as a mediator. In addition to that, we are happy that among our mediators we have success. So the number of successful mediators is also increasing. Of course, this happens as they let's say skills. So we want to show them to others. We of course should find a way of motivating those who are doing very well. So also we want to organize the competition of contest of best mediator. So we plan to do this. I mean, during our future reforms, we will of course look at the criteria how we can do that. Next task is developing of mediation is which means that this is the people who need mediation. So the need of those who who want to who want to use mediation services, if they have no trust in mediators, then it's a very difficult issue. They might say that it's better for me, I'd better go to court to solve my issue instead of going to the mediator. Therefore, in the next stage, we should improve, we should raise awareness of citizens who might need, let's say, the service of the mediators. Let's say, if we talk about the specialization, so this commercial mediation is a kind of new specialization for those mediators. For example, we have people who are involved in this mediation with the businesses. During the we have so we will also, we hope that in our country, developing of mediation, it will be useful. Thanks for your comments. Thank you for your detailed information. So I think, of course, and with pleasure, I would like to give the floor to Mirzaev Usran, the international expert. Mirzaev Ruslan, he is attending online. He is in Eurasia. He will speak about commercial mediation in the Eurasian, and please try to be within the limits of the agenda. Then we'll make conclusion.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to join this event. I'm very pleased to meet our colleagues in Uzbekistan, and I'm also very pleased to talk about mediation with our colleagues in Uzbekistan. Today, within the allocated 10 minutes, I'm going to briefly talk about benefits of mediation for businesses and how mediation may be promoted for commercial cases in different countries. In order to do that, I would like to share a very brief presentation just to demonstrate different issues with regard to promotion of mediation. In a second, I'm going to share my screen. So basically, my presentation topic is about commercial mediation in Eurasia, benefits of mediation for businesses in the context of the region. When we talk about the benefits of mediation for businesses, often people refer to the cost effects, reduced costs of mediation, as well as the time savings as a result of mediation. People say that in comparison with court, mediation takes less time, and it's also usually less expensive than litigation, civil litigation in many cases. This advantage of mediation is quite significant. However, in some countries, the importance of these advantages may be not as significant as in Western European countries. Because, for example, in some countries, litigation is quite not expensive, and in some cases, litigation is quite fast. So these advantages of mediation, which exists in any case, but they may be not very relevant in some countries where the litigation is very fast and it is very not inexpensive. However, there are certain benefits of mediation which exist irrespective of the country where you reside or where you want to promote mediation. Those advantages of mediation include the parties' control over the outcome of the case and risk reduction. At court, parties are not in the control of the outcome of the case, and it's the judge who decides in favor of one of the parties. And parties may end up with a decision which is completely against their position. and without until the end, until the decision is rendered, they may be unaware of such outcome. But in mediation, the parties are in control, in complete control over the outcome. Meaning, if at the end of mediation they don't like the outcome, they may decide not to settle, and they may still go to court. That advantage of mediation exists in all circumstances, irrespective of the country where we reside. Another advantage of mediation would be focused on the business interest. In court, parties, commercial entities, businesses, they litigate on the basis of their legal rights and obligations. But in mediation, a professional mediator may help the parties to concentrate, to focus more on their business interest, not just on their legal rights. That advantage of mediation, again, exists in many circumstances and perhaps outweighs some other interests. Another advantage of mediation specifically for commercial cases would be redesigning the relationship between the parties. For example, if there's a contract between the parties and there is a conflict between the parties about the contract, at court, the parties are not able to, let's say, the judge is not supposed to redesign the contract or renegotiate the contract, but in mediation, the parties may redesign their relationship and renegotiate their contracts and end up with a new contractual relationship. The last advantage of mediation, specifically for businesses, would be flexibility of mediation. Unlike court litigation, where the procedure is fixed under the legislation, in mediation, many nuances, many procedures, many issues depend on the agreement of the parties. So we talked about the benefits of mediation. We talked about 6 benefits of mediation. However, in order to help the parties, help the businesses to take advantage of these benefits, there are different methods how we can promote mediation. So in the next slide, I want to talk about how mediation system may be implemented, how we can make mediation a major or most obvious choice for the parties before they go to court. There are few mechanisms. And I'm going to talk about those mechanisms in a couple of minutes. So when we talk about how we can make mediation a mainstream dispute resolution mechanism before going to court, we can talk about, of course, promotion of voluntary mediation. Voluntary mediation is prevalent, especially in common law countries. The success of voluntary mediation in terms of the number of the cases going to mediation is, let's say, less in continental European and Eurasian countries. However, still, promotion of voluntary mediation is one of the ways, one of the methods of promoting mediation for commercial cases. Another way of promoting mediation is in different countries, courts mandate mediation. Court impose mediation on the parties on a case-by-case basis, meaning the courts decide which case should be referred to mediation, and the parties are under obligation to follow the referral of the judge to mediation. That's one of the methods how countries may promote mediation for commercial cases. Basically, it is authorizing the judge to refer a case to mediation and obliging the parties to follow such instructions, such referral. That's the second way or second tool how mediation may be promoted for commercial cases. Another method or tool how to promote mediation in different countries, in some countries, in the legislation, there are some incentives and sanctions to promote mediation. By sanctions, I mean if the parties attend the mediation, it is taken into account when allocating the costs of the litigation, or there are some financial incentives or other incentives to incentivize, to promote mediation for the businesses. And the last point I wanted to make is probably the most, let's say, mostly discussed, especially recently, mostly discussed issue or trend on how to promote mediation in different countries. That's making mediation prerequisite to litigation, meaning in business dispute, parties, before going to court, they are required to go to mediation. When saying that it is a requirement to go to mediation before going to court, before going to civil litigation, it's not very clear what is meant by going to mediation. What is the essence? What is the scope of this requirement to go to mediation before going to court? In the next slide, I want briefly talk about what can be considered mediation prerequisite to litigation. So in this slide, first three items or first three issues relate to the forms of mediation parties may be required to attend before going to litigation. Sometimes these notions are confused, but they're quite different notions with regard to the requirement to attend mediation. In some countries, it's required to attend an information session before going to court, meaning that before going to court, you need to attend a meeting with the mediator, and the mediator explains the mediation and how it works, and then you decide whether you want to go to mediation or not. That's called information session. That's quite different from initial mediation session requirement. Another option, the second item, is the requirement to attend an initial mediation session, which is also called opt-out mediation model. Unlike the information session, which is, as it's obvious from its name, which is information sharing session between the parties and the mediator, the initial mediation session is not just information sharing session. It is, I call it tasting session or testing session. They sound quite similar, but they have different meaning. It's you taste mediation. You taste mediation, and then you decide whether you like to go to mediation, or in other words, you test mediation, and then you decide whether you like mediation and whether you want to go to mediation. In initial mediation session, unlike information session, in addition to information you receive about mediation, you also start the process with the possibility to opt out, with the possibility to leave the mediation session. So that's called opt-out mediation model. That model is currently quite successful in Italy, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and it has also been used in different countries all around the world, in the United States and Canada. In different countries use this model. Parties start the mediation, and at some point they have to decide whether they want to continue to mediation, to full mediation session or not. That's the second option of how it can be made compulsory for the parties to attend the mediation session. Third item is whether the parties have a duty to attempt to mediate or settle in good faith. Whether the requirement to attend such session is just the requirement to attend such session, or it's also a requirement to attempt in good faith to mediate and settle. That's another question the states need to understand before imposing such requirement on the parties to attend initial mediation session. Mediation session before going to court. And the last question, which is quite interesting and perhaps controversial, is what happens when the parties breach their duty to attend such mediation before going to court. it's quite, sometimes it's obvious for the claimant that it's required from the claimant to attend such session before going to court. And if they don't attend, in many cases, in many countries which impose these requirements, the claimant will not be able to go to court without passing through this stage. But the question is often, what happens to the respondent who refuses to attend such session or such, let's say, information session or initial mediation session, or who fails to mediate in good faith? These are all the issues which are currently discussed in different countries as a successful method of, let's say, expanding the mediation market on the basis of a statutory requirement to attend mediation before going to court. That was a very brief discussion, how mediation may be helpful for businesses and how the number of mediation cases can be expanded, can be increased in different countries by legislative means. I would like to thank you again for your time. It was my pleasure talking to my colleagues, to our colleagues in Uzbekistan. And I would like to thank EBRD and International Development Law Organization for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Rahmat kattakon sizga ham. Qiziqarli mazmunli.
Thank you very much too for very interesting and very meaningful slide. Now our next speaker is Shehzad Masadikov. And for the part of question answers, we have 1 minute for the question and 3 minutes for the answers. So we will try to make it very short. Mr. Shehzad, the floor is yours.
I'm happy to share my thoughts on mediation, on the prospects of mediation in Uzbekistan. There is no doubt that mediation has a big potential for dispute resolution in this field, and Uzbekistan has done significant work to develop this institution. I remember starting my dissertation in 2005, and people were confusing mediation with meditation. And so now we have the law, the framework to operate mediation in Uzbekistan. We have training programs, and we were successful to reduce the hours for training mediators. And no doubt there are also unresolved issues related to the further development of mediation in Uzbekistan. And one of the issues is institutional capacity building, and it's very, very good that EBRD is launching this project in Uzbekistan to develop this institution up to international standards. And there are problems of registration of mediation institutions, mediation centers as NGOs in Uzbekistan. This issue is staying unresolved also. And further moving to international level, we should consider accessing to Singapore Convention and develop our mediation institutions and standards up to international requirements. Therefore, there is still work to be done in this field. For example, according to current requirements, the mediator should undergo mediation training, and after that he has to register he should apply for the register to put their names in the register by the Ministry of Justice. And this creates some problems for international mediators. It's not clear whether they have to undergo this training and be at the register of Minister of Justice as well. So we have to deal with these issues in the further prospects. If we will revise this our law, we should consider such issues as well. And our courts, economic courts, international practice shows that courts have been the main institution who fostered mediation in the jurisdictions. For example, in US, in UK, that's why particular work events, particular work should be done in this direction as well, of connecting courts and mediation institutions and informing parties that the institution like mediation exists, because still not many people know about the mediation, and the lawyers as well doesn't know. And we have been successful in to do some particular work in this field as well. We have list of mediators at the courts building, and the parties can see and choose mediators for their dispute resolution as well. But anyway, a lot of work should be done. For example, public awareness, as we have seen in the slides as well. We should do a lot of work in public awareness, raising the public awareness, telling about the mediation institution and their advantages in Uzbekistan as well. Very happy that this kind of project is being launched in Uzbekistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sherzod. So we have looked at the information that our key experts wanted to share. And if there are any questions, so we can move on to a question and answer session. Ms. Firuza, please. Greetings, dear participants of the event. I'm the adjunct professor of the Tashkent Institute of Law. I have many questions. I have a lot of clarification questions to the master students. There is a subject on the alternative ways of resolution, and we teach mediation. And there are a lot of questions from the students, and the speakers now have spoken very eloquently. And what do we understand as commercial mediation? So our foreign experts, they said about commercial mediation. So I understand it is the conflicts between the entrepreneurial subjects to resolve it in a mediative way. But now I'm not very clear. So mediation is not a free process. You have to be paid. So there are, for example, litigation institutions, but that would not be another alternative to mediation. The second thing, yes, one more thing I wanted to say is that perhaps this commercial mediation, maybe we have to understand compulsory or mandatory mediation, and it is more like a voluntary mediation is there in our legislation. Why in foreign countries mediation is strong? Because it is mandatory, it has a legal effect, and in our case it's voluntary. For example, Mr. Diyorbek Kimsanov spoke, and they said we could not enforce, and you are not entitled to.
Majburiy kuchga ega emas. Shu sababli ham sudya kelishuv bitimdan farqli o'laroq buni kelishuv mediatsiyani tasdiqlamaydi. u majburiy kuchga ega emas, ixtiyoriy. Shu sababli ham davlat bojxona xarajati qaytarib beriladi. Shu sababli ham faqat birinchi instansiyada ko'rib hal etiladi. Lekin to'g'ri, ijroda mediatsiya kelishuv degan tushuncha bor. U tushuncha sizni tushunchangiz tushunayotganingiz bilan sal o'zgacharoq, majburiy mediatsiyaga kelishtirish emas, balkim ijroga borib taqalganda ham taraflar o'zaro kelishish huquqiga ega. Ya'ni sen majburiy shuni bajarasan, shu pulni berasan emas, mana ixtiyoriylik asosida o'zaro hal qilib kelishadi, mediatsiya kelishuv tuziladi. Lekin shunda ham ijro ishi yopiladimi, to'xtatiladimi, tamomlanadimi degan savol juda ochiq qolganda. Bizning qonunchiligimizda ochiq qolgan savollar juda ko'p. Mana majburiy ijro, majburiy mediatsiyaga to'xtaladigan. Biz aytamizki, mana ixtiyoriylik. Shu sababli ham bu mediatsiyani sudya tasdiqlamaydi deymiz. U majburiy kuchga siz majbur eta olmaysiz uni. Majbur eta olmaysiz-da.
What we're saying is voluntary and you cannot enforce it, and the mediator is just an intermediary person that is signing. But what is the legal effect that it has? So it's we talk about the mediation pre-court and mediation during court. But what is the effect of mediation itself? For example, the Russian legislation, in the pre-court legislation, it is equal to civil legal agreement. It can be approved by the notary, and so it has some legal force. That is, once the mediator did some work and helped the parties come to agreement, that will have a legal force. And for example, our foreign experts talked, and I have noted down the name, Roland, I believe, Roland.
When they talked about the disputes between the businesses, even if it is mandatory, the voluntary, we have only one when you have disputes in investment-related disputes. Even again, prior to the court, if there's an investment-related before reaching court, the parties should try to sit on the negotiating table and then reach an agreement. That is when we talk about the then if they cannot settle it, then they have the right to go to court. That is in a way we are saying that it's a kind of mandatory mediation, which means that before going to court they should try to use the mediation. At the same time, we cannot call it mandatory if let's say if they do not observe this procedure, then the judge may not take their suit. That this request has a kind of mandatory clause, and so that is often so there's a commission, let's say, between and there are let's say deadlines are shown there. If they do not follow this, so it has some legal implications. For example, we say that we should promote mediation if there is a kind of dispute. It's a dispute that the two parties cannot reconcile, and the mediator is trying to reconcile them. But what kind of legal force does that? For example, in Japan, France, and Germany, mediation has mandatory force. I want to say, you talked about signing up to the convention in order to recognize. How can you, let's say, sign up to this if the mediation is not introduced here? How can you sign up to that? Maybe you can talk about the international mediation. For example, in the investment-related disputes, international mediators can take part. Who is professional of this sphere? If they can reconcile and then explain the consequences. There are many issues. I said that what kind of responsibility does the mediator have? For example, I know that I'm going outside of the agenda. For example, if if one, it can be, let's say, if it's against law, the judge will not approve the decision reached during the mediation. Why, let's say, mediation, the mediators should give that person's, let's say, property to someone else. Who can control it? So there are so many things that when notary office is issued, let's say, some documents saying that giving some deceased person's property to someone else, and so we should first of all, let's say, experience of Russia's law and then German law, because they, in their case, that the decisions by the mediators has legal force. That's why that they are quite experienced mediators, and usually parties usually go to them instead of going to court. Instead of responsibility of mediators, what kind of responsibility if, let's say, do something illegal, we should, what should be paid attention in with mediative agreement, not only psychological point of view, from the legal point of view, they should have a kind of very good training. If, for example, let's say in the court, I mean, they should have kind of legal educational background, but what kind of requirements are there for mediators? There are so many things, so many uncertainties, gaps or contradictions. In fact, we need to study and study foreign experience, so we have to take this into account. Your view, Masadik, please. We have. We would like to ask experts to be, I mean, brief. Of course, so the questions arise. So you said when the commercial mediation. Mediation in the commercial activities. So that's maybe wrong terminology is used. For example, there are other civil issues or family issues. That is, we are talking about mediating, let's say, disputes among, let's say, businesses, among. There are other issues, for example, for them about mediative agreement, its nature. We should not, the mediations, the nature is a kind of voluntary thing. If we take it, then what's the difference between between the court's ruling and then, for example, there are some agreements which can be reached, for example, which cannot be, put in the framework of the law. That's why you should not, put it in a kind of box. We should not frame it. The state should not regulate mediation. Then, if you put a strict regulations or framework, then therefore it comes from the nature of this mediation. Therefore, I expressed my view. They said that about regulatory body, then it should be self-regulating body. It should be self-regulating. The state has is interested in this. Let's say, if someone from the state deals with it, then I mean, what kind of benefit, what kind of use of it for the state? As for the responsibility of the mediator, we know that civil responsibility, administrative responsibility, and criminal responsibility, we have different codes. If mediator does something unlawful or illegal, then if it harmed the side which is involved in the mediation, then they go to that relevant code. I mean, the law is not meant for that. It just gives you just framework. In some countries, there are even no laws on the mediation. For example, it is still working in the US or in the UK. If we put everything in the law, then the law will not work. What I want to say is that if it doesn't have legal force, then what we need, then, for example, let's say there's a dispute, then it's just legal assessment. Yeah, I got you. So it's a kind of intermediary. So it should give such a way that it should not be unlawful or illegal. And after 10 years, I mean, one of the parties, the mediator will not give the guidance. They can give advice. They can guide them mediation. And then second issue is why you need mediation. Let's say if it's kind of voluntary thing, in order to develop mediation, so kind of culture, legal culture should be developed. If, let's say, if we have a dispute, then the mediation will develop only when two sides decide that to reach its mediation, then observe the decision that is taken. Otherwise, there is no difference between mediation and the court. If, let's say, if they have a kind of culture that we can resolve ourselves, then if we are talking about the thing, what you are saying, that even in Russia, so in Russia, that if the sides cannot observe the experts, of course, every opinion has a right for life. So I would like to answer. We have in such a situation, maybe it's my fault, maybe my opinion was not properly conveyed. When it comes to the rule, so let's say the party didn't want to use mediation in the first instance. So it was my fault. About the mandatoriness of mediation, of course, it's mandatory because it's a kind of legal document. We are talking about, let's say, giving this paper when it comes to the mediative agreement. We try, if, let's say, then if we talk about legalizing it via notary's office, if we want to implement it in line with the international standards, then in the labor code we can hybrid body. In one part these trade unions, and in one part it's and then the decision is then given. So of course, when we talk about mediator, if we just, of course, we made mistake. For example, that anyone who is attained the age of 25 can work as a mediator. But then, of course, we should kind of determine the status of the mediators. So we should then, if we have kind of specific status for the mediator, then we can achieve success. There is another framework law that any investment activity means that investment agreement should be reached. If you want to enjoy some exemptions which are made available by the law, for example, so if we talk about if I, let's say in such cases, if I don't want to use mediation services, if we talk, let's say, if the dispute is in the energy system, let's say in the nuclear energy, then for that, so I also don't agree if we talk about the validness and non-validness. If we talk about the Singapore Convention, so we have to ratify it. If, for example, let's say Sherrod is an investor from China, and if we sign a mediation agreement, then he may go and then give it to the juries in the Shanghai. Then if I say that I have mediation agreement, then they may say that your country is not member of this the Singapore Convention. Therefore, we need to sign this, to sign up to this Singapore Convention. What I want to say is that if we do not introduce this, for it to have a kind of mandatory source, I have to resolve my issue. I have to go to either to China or to Astana at the least. So it's one of the issues that's on the agenda. But I mean, in the future, one day, sooner or later, we'll come to that. So of course, we didn't talk about many things. So about many things, we had some kind of preliminary agreement. Therefore, so we should try to convey our wish to them. Thanks a lot. I think today's roundtable and then heated disputes means that that's a kind of pressing the relevance of the issue which is on the agenda. Therefore, we would like to make conclusions on today's topic, and then if there are more issues, then we will, in a working environment, we will discuss it. So I will give the floor to close today's. I would like to give the floor to Veronica.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Indeed, towards the end, it looked like a very passionate and interesting discussion, which shows, I would second Mr. Yakubov for that. It shows the interest, and it's very good for the country and for the project. So we hope indeed it's going to be very relevant. What we will try to achieve as this project. And generally, I think during today's discussions, there were a lot of questions and issues and ideas launched and raised. And we will listen carefully again to the recording, and we'll try to take on board as much as possible from this discussion, so that it could be reflected in our activities and in our work together with you on the project. So this has been very, very useful for the project as well. And I would like to note the adaptability of the training that you have achieved, and also the keenness of having mediation. And I think, based on our experience today, it would be very useful to organize, perhaps in a more discussion type format, a few more workshops with the people who are interested, so that we could gather more of this very good suggestions and ideas. So I'm sure we all will have an opportunity to discuss this in more details and more technical matters, so that all the questions about the enforceability of the settlement agreement, of the elements of the Singapore Convention, of the commercial nature of the disputes that have to be resolved, of the the other issue that was raised on the mandatory elements of mediation. We will all have the opportunity to clarify and look at the foreign experience and to discuss it again. So I'm very much looking forward to working with you on this project. I'm very grateful to you for the support and for willingness to cooperate in this area. And I wish us all success. Thank you very much.
Rahmat kattakon Veronika xonim.
Thank you very much, Ms. Veronica. And ladies and gentlemen who are following us for today's beautiful event, we would like to thank the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, to the IDLO organization, and to the Ministry of Justice. We will look forward to get your written suggestions as to or comments. Thank you very much.